I was going to use a little setup to do this, but Canvas gave me some trouble. This is your next audio lecture. I don't know if it'll take too long, but I figured this was the safest way to make sure everybody could see it. And also, I don't know, I have this channel, I never use it, I might as well start. So, I guess you'll get a tour, I'll be walking. Let's talk about workshops. And when I say workshop in the, in the context, that's the word, in the context of an English class, what I'm really talking about, I need to shave, what I'm really talking about is specifically, I guess you could call it like a mutual examination of writing and our approaches to writing. For an analogy, I'm sure all of y'all know somebody who has an opinion on everything. For example, somebody has an opinion on every new music artist that comes out. I have an opinion on every pro wrestling match I watch, etc., etc. That's kind of at the core what workshopping is about. The idea is you leverage other people's perspective, talents, and expertise to help you shore up your own weaknesses and identify and capitalize on your strengths. Because, being real, we're not always the best judges of ourselves. In fact, I'd say most of the time we're pretty incorrect about our own talent level, whether that's underestimating or overestimating. So, in a sense, writing in a community, which is really what workshops are about, is a way to help you more accurately place yourself in terms of your ability and, shit like that. The other thing is, communication is weird. And it's really easy to think that you're being very clear when you're actually being muddy as, I don't want to say the F-bomb because, somebody doesn't like it. But it's easy to be unclear when you think you're being clear. It's easy to think that you're being obvious when you're not. I'm sure everybody has had the situation where either you're flirting with somebody and they don't notice, or you've been flirted with and you don't notice. Definitely happens to me. Happens to me, well, not all the time. Actually, I guess it never happens to me now. But it used to happen to me a lot. It sucks. But in a situation like that, with a wingman, you can get some assistance, and either the person who you're trying to flirt with will recognize your flirtations because you're a wingman, or your wingman will help you adjust your approach to better catch your target's eye. Workshopping is basically that. You work with somebody who helps you refine and adjust your approach to maximize your clarity and help you achieve your goal. If that doesn't help, think of it as a spotter. You're trying to bench press something, you need somebody to help you lift it just a little bit. The next point is, ideally, looking at people's work, criticizing it, and reading it helps you refine your own. There's some people who claim, I don't know why or how. Wow, that double chin is looking brutal. But there's people who claim that, say, Nikki Giovanni, I think it was Nikki, said she doesn't read other people's poetry because she doesn't want the influence in her work. She might be telling the truth, and she might really work like that, and she might think that makes sense. I personally think that's wrong-headed as hell. There's not really such thing as a new idea anymore. If you think about it, the world has existed for a long freaking time. And on top of that, humans have existed for a long time. I'm sure that there's plenty of people all over the globe who kind of simultaneously came up with the idea of fire or the wheel or whatever. It's not like an invention. It's not civilization. A person doesn't come up with an invention and then all other civilizations are locked out of it. There's so many people thinking that I don't want to say all the ideas that could have been had, but I'm sure if you took a Glock to medieval times and met King Arthur and shot a dude, he'd be like, holy crap, you're a wizard with a magic wand. We've got analogs for plenty of things. I'm getting off topic. My point here is we're influenced by everything around us. Even Nikki Giovanni, who might think her poetry isn't influenced because she doesn't read other poets, certainly listens to music. She talks to other poets. She talks to other people. She reads books. She reads the news. I mean, who knows? She might play video games and be into BDSM or something. So all this stuff stains your perspective. Stain is a negative word. Colors your perception. And it has an influence on your writing. What's a good example? Oh, I got a good one. A criminal once told me, and I think this is really true, that the best way to make an enemy a friend is to turn them into an investor. So, someone doesn't like you, you don't like them. You want to win them over, and so you convince them to work with you so you can both find some kind of gain, make some kind of purchase. I think in general, the things that we interact with work like that. You go see an action movie, you like that action movie, and it subtly convinces you of its own sort of ideas and values through the process of your enjoyment. It makes you invest in the themes and the morals and the ethics of the movie. Like John Wick. I mean, I know plenty of people who are like, I'm not a dog person, but if they hurt my dog, I'd go crazy like John Wick. You know what I mean? People who are aromantic or asexual, but are moved by romantic sex scenes and, love stories and stuff like that. People who don't want kids, but cry when they play a game like The Last of Us, or I can only think of video game references for children. This Is Us? I don't know. Whatever. My point here is everything that you do and everything that you interact with seeps into you a little bit. And, consequently, everything that you interact with has a little bit of you that seeps into the things that it interacts with. So, all that is just kind of a long-winded way to say it's really easy to not realize the kinds of things that you're arguing when you're arguing them in the moment because you're so deep. I got a way to put it. I can't snap with that hand. I got a way to put it. David Foster Wallace, who's an author. Great author, depending on who you ask. I think he's... But, David Foster Wallace has this great speech he did at this graduation ceremony. And he made this point that I loved. Well, he made a lot of points that I love. But the one that's germane to this is, he said something along the lines of, fish don't know that they're in the water. Because they're fish. They've always been in the water. There is no other state. Now, before this turns into a conversation of, are they wet or not, or whatever, we're like fish. You're born. I don't want to go deep into this freaking oppression 101 lesson kind of thing or something like that. If you're interested, I can pass you links or something. But the idea here is fundamentally that we inhabit certain ideological positions based on our identities. And we don't really notice that at first. I'm not really straight, but so let's use man. Man is a good one. Okay, so I'm a man, right? Was born a man, born a boy, I don't know how to put that. Born a man? It'd be painful for a uterus, wouldn't it? I was born male, that's the word. And I grew up male. I never questioned it, never had an issue with it, despite my fancy kilt. And so I have no idea what it's like to be trans, right? I can imagine, but because I haven't had that experience, it's alien to me. Alien might be a strong word, foreign, right? It's harder to understand that mindset, and consequently, it had been historically harder for me to understand where trans people are coming from. I mean, I generally don't give a shit what people do, so it was never an argument for me, but it was difficult to understand those experiences without doing the legwork. And in this case, doing the legwork means doing research, reading about the medical history of transness in the West, reading about autobiographies of trans people, etc., etc. You kind of got to immerse yourself into it, and you'll never have the experience. I'll never have the experience of being trans because I'm not. But I can better understand the trans experience by seriously listening to transgender people. Another example would be, like I said, I'm a man. And as a man, again, not trying to get into oppression 101 and stuff like that, but being a man, how do I put it? Being raised male in America is a specific and particular kind of experience. It would be possibly analogous, but probably somewhat different from being raised male in the UK, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a certain set of experiences and biases because of my life experience that predispose me towards and against certain things. And you never notice it. I never noticed it because it's always been there, right? It's kind of like you take air for granted. You don't think about it, right? You never think about being able to breathe because air is always available. I'm not asking you to go to a place where there's not. Oh, geez, I've totally lost the plot. My point here is we have blinders on because of the way we were raised. And that's not a knock to how you were raised, but it's just a consequence of things. People who were raised in poverty treat money differently than people who were raised in wealth do. It's just a statement of fact. And because of those fundamental foundational experiences, we can have difficulty seeing the things that we are implicitly stating and arguing for. I guess that's the best way to put it. So workshop ideally serves as a check for those things, right? Like if I'm unwittingly saying something sexist or whatever, then hopefully I have a woman around, or I guess a woke man or some dude available to help check me. Somebody available to check me and get me straight. So we're basically serving as each other's editors in the workshop and ideally throughout life. A kind word and a kind correction goes a long way. So when you take a look at other people's work, fundamentally that's what I want you to do. I want you to look with an eye for kindness, right? And encouragement. I mean, because that's the shit I'm always on, right? Let's help each other. We're in it together. Alone together. Stay at home. Jesus. That said, workshop also works as a way to improve your own writing. If you see stuff that you like in other people's writing, you like the way they turn a phrase, you like the way they use language. I mean, you just like the sentences they write. You like the topics they write. You like the ideas they have or the way they structure things. You like that they can be funny while making a serious argument, something like that. These are things that you can look at during the workshop process and be like, oh shit, I'm going to steal that. Because fundamentally, writing is all about theft to some degree. I guess living is kind of about stealing when you get down to it. Well, hopefully that's not too brutal and capitalist. Man. Anyway, what I'm getting at here is criticizing other writing improves your own if you're also open to the fact that you need to improve. And everybody needs to improve. Improvement is an endless process that happens for the entirety of your life. You can be 85 years old and get better at something. So my hope is, while you're reading these other works and you're analyzing them, you're thinking about how they can improve or what you like in them and stuff like that, what's strong and what's weak. Because I'm not interested in personal likes and dislikes. I'm looking for, I guess, a more objective read of things. Not that you can be perfectly objective, but, I don't want it to be like, well, I think you could choose a different topic because your topic is dumb and I don't like it. I don't want to talk about that. That's not useful. All y'all are better than that, though, so I don't really feel the need to worry about it, but it's important to say. I wonder if me pacing is sickening to people with those kinds of issues. Whatever. Have I said it correctly? Right. Philosophically, the idea of the workshop is that... Yeah, let's put that out. Philosophically, the idea of the workshop is that you will improve your own writing by reading other people's writing. And ideally, it'll be far enough away from your own kind of work. Wow, I need my hair done. Ideally, it'll be far enough away from your own kind of work that you can look at it and say, oh, okay, this is weird, this is interesting, maybe I could use something like that. I guess maybe the simplest way to put it would be, can you ever be a chef without eating other people's cooking? Can you ever can you call yourself, I don't know, a car fanatic who works on cars like a car mechanic if you can only fix, like, I don't know, a Mazda Miata? You know what I mean? Like, Salman Rushdie said once that because he's a writer, he can write anything. And I don't think that you can get to that kind of skill and confidence level as a writer unless you read a lot of stuff. And you read it both with an eye for just pleasure, because the worst thing to do is to lose the joy of reading. But also read it with an eye for what could be better, what could be improved. How would you do something? That's a good one. I've been playing a fighting game, and Grand Blue Versus, if you play it. And I realized one of the most important things to do is, if I'm watching two people play a match in a fighting game, I will watch it with an eye for how would I deal with that. Workshop is a lot like that. How would I deal with that? How would I do this? How could this be better? How is this better than what I would have done? Stuff like that. So you're critiquing the other person, but there's also sort of a personal critique happening at the same time, internally, ideally. And that's going to be the stuff that's going to fuel your improvements and revisions. I will get your revisions back to you at the end of the week. The grades for the rhetorical analysis should have been in, but naturally, Canvas hates me. Revisions, workshop. Ideally, had the plague not, occurred, we would have done this in class instead of future presentations and spent the time talking about it collectively as a group. The reason I didn't take names off of the stuff that was sent in is because I feel like it's important that you stand beside what you say. I don't like the idea of people having pseudonyms and nom de guerres and all that kind of stuff. I did make sure that every class got a different set of papers. So it shouldn't be people that you have classes with. It might be people I don't, get on Facebook and stalk y'all and nothing. But ideally, you'll be dealing with work that is from people that you don't know, just as a sort of a warm-up thing. That's what we would have done in class, and then I would have had y'all work on each other, Because part of being able to take criticism is being able to hold that, I guess, is the best way that I can think to say it. Sometimes you're not going to like what you hear or like what you're told. You don't have to listen to all the criticism that you get. Because, I mean, some stuff just doesn't apply. You know what I mean? If I'm in the gym to work on my chest and somebody's like, hey, man, you should do deadlifts. Why? I mean, that's my back and my posterior chain. That's not going to do anything for my chest. Why would I do it? It's useless advice. Or similarly, if somebody was like, hey, man, you should become an HVAC technician. Why? It's not part of my career goals. What's it going to do for me? You know what I mean? It's good advice. HVAC technicians make a lot of money. But is it going to serve me now in what I'm doing? So there's a degree of checking your ego at the door when you get feedback. But not setting aside your own intentions so much that you let the feedback that you get take over the paper. You know what I mean? I know damn well how to cook a mean pasta. I don't need any help for that. I don't really need a lot. But if somebody says, hey, you could probably stand to use a little bit less garlic, I'll consider it at least. You know, I'll think about the balance of the spices and the meat sauce and stuff like that. That's what you're doing here. You're considering it. You're receiving stuff that you can look into later. But it's nothing that you have to do or don't have to do. So, final paper is due, should be May 4th before, I know it's before midnight, but I forget when exactly. It's the latest that I can take those. Please do. If you're considering dropping the class, you should still have a little bit of time to do that. Oh, and the class survey. I'm going to send all this stuff in an email anyway, but I might as well say it. Please do the class survey. Hope you're safe, hope you're happy, hope you're healthy. I hope things haven't become too burdensome in your personal lives as a result of all this nonsense and misery. And hopefully everything's still standing and the relevant bills pass and everybody can keep going to John Tyler so I still have a job and y'all can still progress towards your personal and professional goals. This is my cat Zoe. Zozo. Yep, I'm done. I think that's it. So I'm going to post this, and I'm going to send an email with a link, and get to work, I guess. All right. See you later.